Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. This season I will be narrating for you the future war love story, Sara's War, which you can also buy a printed copy and a digital copy at Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. And today we are on Chapter 26. Here we go. Chapter 26. Pull out the guns. Soldiers, 22! Jack yells, 22! Whatever 22 is, it must be the code for his plan. Several men and women pull out their large machine guns. Curly-haired Brent stands and strides down the aisle. He stops adjacent to the steps leading to the exit of the bus. He stands tall, his body sturdy and his face serious. I'm surprised he doesn't have an M16 like the others, but I do spot a small gun in his holster. Jack stands and speaks in a loud, authoritative voice. Remember, soldiers, we need these guys alive, but in our hands. Meds, just keep your guns handy, and don't do anything stupid. Jack sits and grabs his M16 that's standing upright, resting against the back of the seat in front of us. He squints intently out the window as he prepares his gun. He's obviously done this countless times. The bus fills with noise of clicking and popping and latching, as the others prep their guns as well. Don't you have an M16? Jack asks me when he notices my hands are empty. No, just an anaconda. I lean over to where my backpack sits by my feet and pull out my small revolver. Jack flashes me a disappointed look. Either he wishes I had a bigger gun, or he doesn't trust me with the revolver. Stay in the bus then, he tells me. What if they try to blow it up? They won't. How do you know? I press. Just trust me, Jack whispers, as he scans the small crowd on the bus. I nod, wishing my adrenaline wouldn't hurt my gut so much. I swear I could run 50 miles without stopping right now. Staying in the bus is not going to be easy for me. But Jack said they won't blow it up. I will hold on to that thought. Jack hands me his binoculars. Tell me if you see anything. He walks around our seat and sits next to Lexi, speaking to her in low, urgent tones. I peer through the binoculars. I gaze past the long, wild field of grass and weeds and into the gigantic forest of red oaks. I want to keep my mind off what's coming, so I immerse myself in the details of the red trees. How beautiful they are. They remind me of home. Their spread-out branches give them a sculptural look as they curve up and over and down like a rainbow. I used to climb them as a child. I could easily hop up on one of the old branches that hangs low to the ground and zigzag my way to the top and pull off a leaf and trace its yellow veins. I was 7 years old when I discovered that if I turned an oak leaf upside down, it looked something like a bell. Then I spotted something definitely different than a tree. 5 different somethings, to be exact. 3 men and 2 women, all of different races, holding large rifles. All are dressed in civilian clothes. They each have a shaved head on either side and a short mohawk down the center. I zoom in just a bit and notice they also have the same tattoo on their left temples. 2 small black roses intertwined around a dagger pointing outwards. These guys are definitely not regular soldiers. Jack, I think I see them. Jack jumps up from his seat and reaches for the binoculars as he comes to sit next to me again. At that moment, Grimes' voice comes through the radio. Colonel, this is Grimes. We see 6 of them. Over. Then another voice comes through right after. Main's here. We see 4. Over. Jack lowers the binoculars. His jaw tightens as his eyes bulge in horror. He snatches his radio. This is Colonel Haskins. We're moving to Plan B, he yells, his voice loud with intensity. Do you read me? Plan B! Suddenly, a piercing crack splits the air. The window in front of us splinters into pieces. Jack and I both duck, covering our heads. Crash! Crack! Chink! 3 more windows break. The bus comes to a screeching halt. I push against the seat in front of me to keep from face-planting into it. There's stark stillness for 1 split second. Jack grabs his radio again. Fire! Fire! Several soldiers yank open their windows, line their guns up, and start shooting. The sound of each bullet jolts my heart like a million hammers hitting it all at once. Stay down, Doctor! Jack yells to me as he lifts his own gun up and shoots a couple rounds. I crouch on the floor as I hear a few painful cries outside. I risk a peek out my window. 2 Mohawks are limping as they walk backward, still firing at the bus. Another Mohawked man sprints across the field toward the forest. Jack turns and points to Brent, who is still standing by the doorway. "Go!" he shouts. Brent leaps out of the bus and starts chasing the Mohawked man at lightning speed. The Mohawked man lifts a pistol behind him and shoots blindly, but Brent stays his course. Jack yells into his radio again. "Phase 2, go!" A dozen soldiers walk down the aisle with intense purpose, prepping their guns as they walk. Within seconds, the field fills with soldiers from our various buses, with their M16s up and ready to fire. Several follow Brent and the enemy escapee. A few hidden shots come out of the trees, but they're answered with a dozen more shots from our soldiers. "Move in and get those guys," Jack says into the radio. All the soldiers obey, stepping almost in unison. In no time, they've reached the oaks. Several more shots fire, but I can't see the result. Jack's gun is still up and ready to shoot. His chest heaves up and down with adrenaline. All is silent for several terrifying seconds. Then a static voice strains through the radio. "Main's here. We got 4. Over." Then I hear more shots in the distance. "Stay ready," Jack commands the remaining soldiers in the bus. Everyone stays in position with their guns ready to fire. Then Grimes' panting voice comes through the radio. "Grimes here. We got 6. Over." "Stay ready," Jack commands, but he snaps his safety on and crouches beside me as he speaks into the radio. "Ross, do you read me?" "Ross? Oh, that must be Brent. His squad is the only one who hasn't reported yet." Jack grimaces when Brent doesn't reply. He points to 3 other soldiers. "Go find Ross. He's at your 11 o'clock. But then Ross's voice gasps through the static. "We've got him, Colonel. We've got 5. Over." "Excellent. Stand down, everyone." The soldiers on the bus sigh in unison and put their guns down. I can hear the safeties latching into place. I sigh heavily with relief as I rest my head back on my seat. Jack stands in place. "Let's go, Oxford," he says, prepping his gun. Then he looks at me. "Stay in the bus, all right?" I nod as Lexi follows Jack off the bus. I sit back up on my seat and look out the window. A dozen soldiers come out of the thicket just as Jack and Lexi head in. I half expect to see someone walk out of the trees carrying a bleeding body over their shoulder. Now that the spies, or whoever they are, have been caught, I feel an impulsive urge to run and check on the wounded. But unfortunately, I've been ordered to stay in the bus. Man, I hate this. I stretch my arms in front of me to release the tension in my shoulders. "Berets, get out here!" Jack yells through the radio. 7 or 8 soldiers come into view and quickly jog their way across the dry grass and into the thick oaks. I scratch my fingernails across my head, and the interrogation begins. All the original soldiers are back on the bus now and conversing amongst themselves. I continue to keep my eyes on the forest where Jack and his prisoners are concealed. "I would hate to be interrogated by Colonel Haskins," notes one woman soldier with the raspy voice. "What else in the world could be more petrifying?" "Colonel Haskins doesn't even touch 'em," comes a deep reply. "Yeah, right," exclaims the woman. "Why else would they talk?" "Don't know," the man says, "but I've seen him do it before." "Well, what does he say to them?" questions the woman. "Don't know that either," says the man. "I've only seen him from a distance, and I don't think he'll tell nobody what he says." "There is no way he doesn't beat them," argues another woman. "I don't believe that for a second." "It's true," says the man. "I tell you, I've seen him do it." "Whatever," she hisses back. "I've never had to give medical treatment to anyone that the colonel has interrogated before." This voice I recognize as Randy's. I hear a few more scoffs, but no one argues further. "Haskins is the only one who can do it that way, though," says another guy. "I don't know of anybody else who can pull it off." "You bet," says the first man. "Colonel Haskins won the Bronze Star in Special Forces. He's got all kinds of tricks up his sleeve." "I bet that scrawny guy peed his pants just looking at the colonel," calls a voice from the back of the bus. "He didn't look older than 14. Shouldn't be too hard to get him to talk." Chuckles all around fill the air, but I cringe. I sure hope they don't actually have a kid with them. I keep my eyes glued to the forest. I wish I could see Jack. I squint even harder, but the woods are so deep and the bright trees are so thick and close together, it's hard to even see where one ends and the other begins. I glance around for Jack's binoculars, but they are nowhere in sight, and I certainly don't want to snoop through his stuff. "Are there other interrogations going on right now, too?" asks the first woman. "Yeah," says the first man again. "If we can interrogate 'em all at the same time, we're less likely to have escapees." For the first time, I look away from my window. "Does anyone know if any of our guys got shot?" I blurt out. One man twists his head around to look at me. He has a stubby nose and beady eyes. "If they did, they were able to walk away from it," he calls loudly. "We would have heard by now if anyone needed medical help," says Randy's voice from behind me. I turn around to see him sitting by himself about 3 seats back on the opposite side of the aisle. "Everybody's fine," he says with assurance. I hear loud shouting from outside. I whirl around and look out my window. Jack is sprinting across the field with intense urgency. Bang! I flinch as an ear-splitting shot strikes the air. Terror grips my chest. Not a second later, another shot sounds and our driver thuds to the floor. Instinctively, I grip my anaconda. Man down, my radio calls. I gasp aloud. Is it Jack? I leap from my seat, but stop short as a mohawked man wearing a blood-red shirt stands at the head of the bus. His sweaty white face pulls up into a nasty grin, causing his tattoo by his temple to squish together. He raises a pistol and another deafening shot is fired. I whirl around to see where the shot came from. Randy is standing up, lowering his gun, his face hard and mean. The strange man grabs his head. Blood leaks through his fingers. He stumbles a few steps, then collapses to the ground. And that concludes Chapter 26. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a little bit more intense than this book has been before. But, obviously, it's setting up for other things. I hope you come back next week for Chapter 27, which is called Take Me to the Blood. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I hope you stay safe and healthy. I wish you all the very best during this crazy time in the world. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.